It's a Tuesday edition here on Zero Block 30, and today we have 4 rounds in the magazine. Round number 1, I've been going down some TikTok rabbit holes, and I found one about killer whales, and it's absolutely fascinating. I think because Free Willy was such a popular movie, like for people my age, like around your age, you're probably a little bit younger.
Huge movie.
Do you remember it being? I stole that CD. I think like 3 times, the Free Willy soundtrack. I just loved it. If you can't get down to hold me like a river Jordan, you have no taste in music.
I mean, what an ending. The whale leaping over the seawall as his hands touch his little whale belly.
Yeah, and
Michael Jackson starts singing. Yeah,
they're so powerful. Like to be able to throw themselves, like, and how much they weigh that far, 20, 30 feet out of the air, is legitimately crazy. Like when you think about how much strength that would take in your tail to be able to throw your big old body out of the water like that. I mean, I've tried it. Have you seen those videos of like an NFL player or NBA player who will be standing in the shallow end and they'll try to do like a box jump out of the shallow end onto the thing? Like that is so difficult. And that's just barely breaking the surface of the water. Like that's not like going like LeBron James jumping 60 feet out of the water. It'd be like straight up Aquaman stuff. Anyways,
it's not like they're aerodynamic either.
No, they're big. They're just big, giant blobs of muscle, essentially. You can't even call them fat. They're just big old muscly things. I went down a rabbit hole with a bunch of different killer whales, and I found a bunch of killer whale facts. Kate, this is just going to be a rabbit hole round, essentially, because Kate went down one and she found one for TJ Maxx Ceramics. Are you a big TJ Maxx lady?
I'm tying this into the military because there's a war element to it. Women who are obsessed with this certain brand of ceramics are attacking coordinated attacks against TJ Maxx employees. Okay. They're waiting outside the store. They're hiding in the store. They're doing all kinds of crazy guerrilla warfare type shit to get their paws on a specific. I'll get into it. It's called Ray Dunn.
Ray Dunn. And see, I haven't even heard of that one. Like that one, I know
hadn't
that
heard of it either.
That was a big one. And then the ladies at Target. Do you remember that fancy brand that came to Target for a little while? And they had, they did like limited release at Target, and people would rush to Target to get it and then sell it for like 10 times the amount of that it cost at Target.
This is kind of what that's like. It's like a fervor over this shit, a home decor thing. So I kind of want to we went down little rabbit holes.
I love it. Round number 2, a British Royal Marine completed a big time accomplishment, and his hands look absolutely insane. He rode across the entire Atlantic Ocean, the entire thing. I also found another TikTok of this couple that started walking from Mexico to Canada. Like they just took the summer and did it. How do you have the money to do that where you could just take months off?
That is the dream. Hopefully someday I say, hey, Dave, I have this content idea and it's me just doing the hike of my dreams, tricking them.
Yeah, they did all kinds of stuff. They would stop off and get into like the hot springs. Like they would just find one and then just hop in. I don't think a hot spring is one that I would get into unless it had like a sign that says like this is safe for swimming, because that seems like a hot spring can go.
People boil in Yellowstone every year. It's true. If people get fucked up, they don't realize. Yeah, I need one of those little kid bath duckies in it. That's if it's red, that it's too hot. No thanks.
Or one of those mugs. You could bring in one of those mugs that changes colors and be like, oh, it starts out white, and then you put in hot coffee and it says, "Fucking finally got my coffee."
Exactly. Amen, chaps.
Need that. Round number 3, the CIA reportedly was going to do a little assassination goofin against Julian Assange, who is the Wikileaks founder. They actually had like big time meetings. They chalk talks about it, and they were just going to go kill that dude.
What?
Like it came out today, and it's an article from Yahoo, which I wouldn't say Yahoo's like they're not a bunch of Yahoos over there, but I wouldn't typically say I'm going to trust them for deep dive reporting. Like usually that comes from like the Washington Post or the New York Times or Politico or like other big journalistic brands coming from Yahoo. But I got to say, like, you're going to hear some of these facts. The amount of sourcing that they did on this report is mind blowing. Okay. It's a crazy report. So we're going to get that in round number 3. And finally, round number 4, this is going to be real quick. The fella that tried to kill Ronald Reagan is given an unconditional release after he did in 1981 he pled insanity, which if you plead insanity, the odds of that working for you are almost zero. Like almost nobody gets away with pleading insanity. Like, and most lawyers will tell you not to do it because juries just don't believe it. And that goes up to the judge and you have to have all this documentation and it's so specific what you need. Well, this guy is now, he has an unconditional release. I would have never thought that somebody that shot the president multiple times would ever get out.
Me neither. I couldn't believe it when I saw it. So
yeah, and he's only 61. He's got time to live. He's got time to do his own thing.
Plenty of time to live.
So we're going to get into that. It's going to be a fun show, and all that's going to be brought to you by our friends at Cross Country Mortgage. If you don't know Cross Country Mortgage by now, you haven't been paying attention to all the different Barstool podcasts that you've been listening to, because they're one of our biggest partners and they're doing great things, not just for you, the listeners, but for us. There's several of the employees that have used it or are using it, and I'm going to refinance my house with it because I did a weird loan. So now I'm going to have to use them. Their rates are at an all-time low, and they're probably never going to get this low again. I think a lot of times when you say that in an ad, people are like, that's not true. Like, it will go down. I don't think it will. I don't think the interest rates for where they're at for homes are ever going to get that spot. So if you need to use your GI bill, or not your GI, VA loan, they have the ability to do all that stuff. Just go to crosscountrymortgage.com/barstool to learn more about your home buying experience, or you can refinance too. Just go to Cross Country Mortgage, LLC, NMLS 3029. All loans are subject to underwriting approval. That's www.nmlsconsumeraccess.org. It's great folks over there, and they're so easy. You know, I like because so many times whenever you're calling a company and it starts giving you the options of, do you want to talk to this person, or what account do you go to? I stop listening at option 2 typically. Like I just get so bored with their message. But this one, you can say representative, and the representative actually comes up, and it doesn't take forever, which is really nice. I like that when you don't have to explain it. There's one that I use pretty often. I think it's when I pay my truck bill, where they're like, I say, I want to speak to a representative. Well, what is it about? Well, if I wanted to tell you what it was about, I would have said that. Just put somebody on the damn phone. Just that simple. I'm an old man. I don't want to talk.
For the love of God.
Right. For the love of God, indeed. All right, let's get going with the show. Cons is out today. He's doing some other stuff. Nick got his whole family sick. The whole squad is
when the whole squad is
big
sick.
Yuck.
Yeah, whatever, which is going around, by the way, like crazy. We're getting a lot of runny nose and sniffles and all that stuff here. It makes you so paranoid, especially riding Jersey Transit. You ever get that tickle in your throat where all of a sudden you're like uncontrollably coughing? And it's like embarrassing.
And it's worse now because COVID now. Like I've told you how I had that condition, and we looked it up. I think it was on this show, where if I walk into the sun, I sneeze. Like if I go from the shade to the sun, I will sneeze. Now, when I'm going into a store, I'll get out of my truck, go into a place, and I'll sneeze. Now I just feel like everybody's looking at me like I'm a leper.
Oh, yeah. And I have the vaccine. I have a mask on. But even when it starts, I'm like, oh, my God, whatever. So very stressful to be sick these days, no matter what it is.
But I wanted to get into this. Oh, we have some cleanup news to do, because you said that you wanted to talk about not only are the bus drivers in Massachusetts that are going to be reservists, but our friends over in the UK are really trying to one-up us here, right?
Yeah. So because of bus driver shortages in cities like Boston and Philadelphia, we had told the story that the government in these states are like, well, why don't the National Guard be bus drivers? Why don't the National Guard drive kids to school? And that's actually happening, I believe, up in Boston, at least. Don't know if it was approved in Philly. Well, the UK is one-upping us. They have a huge gas shortage going on right now. So of course, people are panic buying, and a lot of the gas stations are running out of fuel. And so their National Guard, or their military of sorts, got voluntold to be gas deliverers. So driving gas trucks, delivering gas, fuel bubbas, as they call them here in the States.
I mean, I guess it makes sense to use the military in that way, like no matter what country you're in, because it is like gasoline. If you don't have enough gas, everything shuts down. Like we saw that recently whenever one of the refineries was shut down on the East Coast, where it took them several weeks to get things back to normal. So I could see why it's important, but that's not what you pull out. Like when you go to the recruiter and they have the little tags out where you're like world rights travel, money, education. Being a bus driver and being a fuel delivery person is not one of those things that you usually pull out.
Yeah. Next thing you know, they're stocking vending machines. They're like, what the hell?
They're delivering your Amazon shit. I mean, that's what they should do. Like the government and Amazon should just come together with a deal and be like, look, you guys are going to everybody's house anyways. So why don't you just become the post office and we'll pay you a little bit of money? You're doing it anyway.
Speaking of, I saw this TikTok over the weekend. Pat showed it to me of this military veteran who was a not UPS. What's the other one? FedEx delivery guy. And he's in his FedEx uniform in the FedEx truck. And he's talking about how he's sick and tired of seeing these. You know how people have their political signs and their flags on their house? I saw this
one too. Yeah.
And he's like, if you have your political signs out front, but you don't have an American flag, I'm not delivering your package. I'm not delivering your package to you, blah, blah, blah. Well, naturally, he got fired from FedEx because people are like, whatever. The next post, this is one of those posts that we were talking about where you're like, please don't be a veteran. Please don't be a veteran. Please don't be a veteran. The next post, he has his shirt off and a huge military police tattoo on him. Huge on his arm. And then he had written his Venmo on his back because he's like, well, help me out, fellow patriots. I don't have a job anymore. But of course.
But how do you think that's a good idea? Like,
I don't know.
Where you're in, because he's in, when he did this, he was in the FedEx truck, in the FedEx uniform. His name tag is like clearly visible.
Right.
It's like, what are you doing, guys? Same thing with like these different O5s primarily in the military that are going on and telling their vaccine stories and going on Fox News, like while wearing uniform. Like, what are you doing, guys? Like, you know, you're not supposed to do that. You're going to get in trouble.
What happened to the good old fashioned? And I feel like 60 Minutes used to have it all the time where it was just the dark silhouette.
Oh, yeah. The anonymous voice.
I want that back.
If you want to come here, I'm not going to be delivering your packages. I'm not going to do that. So that's an update on that story from around a couple of weeks ago. I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago. Last Friday, we had it around where we talked about some fella had to go to the doctor because he was coming out of his butt and shitting out of his dick.
Sure.
And one of the things that really fascinates me about this show is because of the amount of listeners and the type of listeners that we have. Usually, if we share a story, it's going to connect with one listener at least, and they're going to have a personal
out there's
antidote
coming out of their butt, right?
And it's fantastic. I mean, from the story that you told about having the reservists drive the buses, one of the women who actually is in charge of that, the commanding officer for that little group, reached out and she was like, yeah, we're actually doing that. And they get paid this much a day. This is their responsibilities. They have these different things. I was like, oh, cool. So we have an actual connection there. Well, this one, listen to this DM. I actually read it to Annalise last night, and she didn't know the background of like what the round was or anything. And she's at the end, she was like, that was the most insane message I've ever heard anyone get. Here we go.
Okay.
Heard the story on the pod about shitting out of your dick and had to share my story. Last year, I got a colon infection called diverticulitis, or whatever medical name is. Absolutely. There was a third time in 2 years that I got this infection, and this time felt more bold than the other one. So I decided to let it pass instead of getting antibiotics like I had done the other times. 2 weeks later, I was trying to pee, which happens a lot with this type of infection, and peed out a little glob of mucus and blood. It was time to go to the ER. Turns out the infection blew a quarter-size hole in my colon and in a part of the colon that rests right next to your bladder. This caused a pin-sized hole to open up in my bladder, and a fistula formed between my colon and the bladder. So I was scheduled to have a part of my colon removed, and in the days leading up to that surgery, I was farting and shitting out of my dick. And buddy, let me tell you how wild it is to sit on the toilet for 45 minutes to an hour and have a very alarming amount of shit come out of your dick. I ended up having a foot of my colon removed and spent 5 days in the hospital. I also had a catheter in for 3 days. And after a day or so, I started having intense pain inside my dick when I would try to pee. However, nothing was coming out. I finally convinced my doctors that something was wrong with the catheter, and they took it out. I peed, and 2 final large pieces of poop came out. It turns out that these poops were clogging the catheter. To this day, it's the most satisfying pee I've ever had. Anyways, love the pod. Thanks for everything you guys do for the veteran community.
It's out. Hey, kudos. That's a brave person right there reaching out with that story. There's other people farting out of their penises for sure.
And the best part was he emailed me messaged me a second time. He was like, hey, can you leave my name out? I'm like, yeah, dude. Like, I'm not going to be like, so fucking Lance Corporal Williams at second whatever is out here shitting out his dick. But he said it like he wrote me several more times, and he was like, it really is. You could feel the air coming out of your dick whenever you're doing this. I'm like, that's got to be the first time that's happened. You have to be like, what's going on here? I'm shitting from my dick.
Wait, what the heck? Wait, what? What the heck is that poop? What the? Is that poop coming out of my?
Anyways, let's move on to round number 1. This one comes to us from a little bit of TikTok because I I think one of the things that I like the most about this social media, I guess, platform more so than the other one, you do learn a lot of stuff on it. Like if you're just scrolling through, you're going to find stuff that you had no idea about. Like orcas. I know orcas are killer whales. I know that they're not whales. They're actually porpoises. Like the basic facts, I knew that. But I had no idea how smart these things were. No idea.
I mean, I knew from SeaWorld, which I now rebuke. I knew
from Blackfin, right?
SeaWorld. I saw Blackfin. I'm a changed woman. And I follow Steve-O. He's very anti-SeaWorld. He's taught me a lot. But I knew they were smart to be able to do all these tricks and all this stuff. But what made you think they were super crazy smart?
Well, this little clip is 60 seconds. So we're going to put it in 60 seconds. And this is just this fella going through just a litany of orca facts that I had no idea. Here it is.
Are we really just going to ignore the fact that killer whales give sharks PTSD? Welcome to Animal Logic. Let's talk about it. Orcas are the most disrespectful animal on the planet, and that's exactly what happens when no one can check you. Other than humans, the only thing that can take on an orca and win is a bigger orca. Because they're the top of the food chain, orcas bully the entire underwater census, and they legitimately traumatize great white sharks. If Jaws happens to encounter an orca near their hunting grounds, they'll abandon the area for up to a year. And for good reason. Orcas actually figured out that if they flip over sharks, they can induce tonic immobility, paralyzing the shark while the Bundy dolphins take its liver, heart, testes, and probably its life too. Killer whales have been seen punting seals up to 80 feet in the air just like a field goal. Researchers believe they do this to either paralyze the seal or loosen its skin. But there's always that chance that these psychopaths do this because they find joy in putting a seal in the clouds. They're also intelligent enough to work together to create a wave that's so powerful that it knocks the seal completely off the ice. And just when he thinks he's safe on the beach, Steroid Flipper reminds him it's an orca's world and he just lives in it. And even though they're built like an 8 to 12,000 pound equality symbol, they can launch themselves up to 15 feet in the air. Really bad news if you're a bottlenose in the wrong place. And they slap stingrays. Just because they can.
So that one, I clicked on that and then started Google searching like about it because it seems messed up that these, they are so intelligent that they figured out how to create their own waves in the ocean so they can knock a seal or something off of a little chunk of ice. So researchers will observe them ramming into boats to cause fear. That there's been documented cases of great white sharks coming into a cove and orcas coming in, and the great white sharks and their like little pod being so scared that they won't return back for a year because the orcas are just so ruthless in the way that they go about their business. And like so many other like what are they called? Fucking marine biologists say that they're just so cruel to the other animals that they like legitimately will play with their prey. Like, and sometimes they won't, most animals in the animal kingdom only kill to eat. Like they don't do it for the enjoyment. Orcas will do it for the enjoyment. They'll just go up to a dolphin, kill it, and just leave it, not even eat it. They're legitimate psychopaths, but there's never been a case of them attacking humans. But now they're starting to go after boats, like in areas where they're like the boats are stealing their fish because they're realizing that boat is taking our food. So it's like a legit battle. Now they feel like they have somebody on their level for the first time in the food chain because nobody else, they are an apex predator. Nobody hunts orcas and they hunt great whites. Like nobody does.
What if, because China is notorious for overfishing, what if the CIA starts giving the whales guns?
Military working orcas.
Kind of like our Taliban situation back in the day. And then we say, what if we started a proxy war with China through the whales? Something to think about.
I mean, some of these stories are they take one, they'll go up and they will be able to locate a porpoise's or a dolphin's testicles, and they'll bite through that part of the animal so they can't reproduce. And the marine biologists are saying they know what they're doing. Like they'll bite them intentionally, or they'll bite them on the spot of their dorsal fin, an animal on their dorsal fin, so that all they can do is swim in circles so they can't get away. And they'll just let the animal suffer and watch it and then not even eat it. It's crazy, like how fucked up they are. And you wouldn't think that, like, if you watch Free Willy, you're like, this dude is just a nice guy. Willie, just free him. Like, he wants to go back out with his family. He's sad. Look at his little fin. It's hunched over.
Well, again, Blackfin, they did start killing the trainers. No, they figured it out. They were mad to be in the...
figured it out. But I have some orca facts. Are you ready?
Okay, I don't like them very much right now, Chaps. I'll be honest.
I don't like them very much either. They're called the killer whales. They're not actually whales. They're dolphin, and they're the largest species of dolphin. That's the first one. Everybody knows that. 2, they have a culture. They're one of the only animals that actually have a culture attached to them, where they will have like social groups and things like that, to the point where they use different techniques in hunting, where they will have different responsibilities for different members of the clan.
These are
like
the Trump orcas. These are the Biden orcas.
Yeah,
these are the
liberals and conservatives. Classic.
Right.
You have your libertarians, then you have your Green Party orcas, of course.
Right.
The third one. Did you know this is one of the only animals in the animal kingdom that go through menopause?
That's what they're opening the windows of the ocean. Like, it's so hot in here. So hot. Yeah. I had no idea.
Yep. And so they do that because the grandma orca and the grandpa orca will take care of the little babies while the mom and dad go out and hunt. So they, like, when the babies are real small, the grandparents will take care of it. And so in order for the grandparents not to have that same level of viciousness, they go through menopause. Like, they've evolved to go through menopause.
So old orcas, baby orcas and old orcas, I'm cool with. Mom and dad orcas, I'm not cool with.
We don't know what they've been going through, too. The mom and dad.
True,
orcas.
that's a good point.
There's a lot of pressure on these mom and dad orcas to have like a nice amount of food, a nice house, a nice little pod. Like, they have all these different pressures that they have to go.
Can you imagine the grandparent orcas to their being like, well, you guys have been married for a couple years now.
I don't know. Doesn't say anything in these articles about if they fuck for fun.
Where's my grandkids?
I don't know. But also with the fucking for fun thing, legend has it that's where a lot of the sea monster stories come from, because orcas' penises are so big when they're erect that it was like just a sea monster floating around.
If they're killing for fun, they're fucking for fun.
True.
For sure.
They also have different languages between pods. Like, certain pods will speak in one way, and they have different dialects, like depending on where they're from in the world, like where that orca lives at in the world. They have different dialects, just like people do, which is nuts. It's the second most. Go ahead.
I actually have a clip of the UK whales off the coast of the UK. Ready? I'm gonna hit play. Beep. All right. How are you, mate? Buck bake. Don't sweep your chimney.
Check your blowhole.
Wow.
That's really impressive.
It sounds so realistic. Yeah.
They're the most widespread animal in the animal kingdom, the second most. They can go up to 100 miles per day. They'll go 100 miles per day is how far they'll swim. That's a long ways to go off. They cannot smell, and they have big brains that are as much as 15 pounds, 15-pound brain.
Well, so I went to Nantucket one Easter in the spring when it was cold before, because I couldn't afford peak season. Okay. In Nantucket, I went in the off season. But I ended up going to the Whaling Museum. It was one of those Katie roaming around by herself weekends. I went to the Whaling Museum. Do you know why they used to hunt whales around here back in the day? Like during the Industrial Revolution? No, there's this little pocket in their brains that has this oil. And like a little bit goes a long way. Whale oil is what, like, in the Industrial Revolution and all the cogs and everything, they all have to be lubricated. It was like the lubricant. Like, we wouldn't have had so much shit and so much advancements if it wasn't for this whale lube, sort of.
Whoa.
This is the way. Now, I haven't Googled this. It's been like 10 years, but that's the way I remember it, is this little pocket of oil in their heads was like super valuable. And at the height of whaling, they would waste, like, a lot of cultures use the whole body of the whale, whatever. They would just take that little part of it and then boink, get rid of the rest of it, kind of, and waste the rest. But yeah. Anyway.
How do you figure that out? Like, where you're just looking at a whale and be like, you know what? But if I crack open that thing's brain, there's something in here that'll help me with this machinery. I don't know how that stuff works. Like, how?
Yeah, it's called spermaceti. And it's from the Greek sperma, meaning seed, and cheti, the genitive form of whale. So whale seed, it's a waxy substance found in the head and in other whales too. But the organ can contain, I was wrong about it being little. The organ can contain as much as 1,900 liters, aka 500 gallons of this stuff. That's oil, and they use it for all sorts of shit.
500 gallons.
Yeah, it was like a big deal, a big thing from the cavities of a whale that they used in oil lamps to make soaps in the 20th century. It was made into margarine with petroleum industry. It was used all sorts of stuff in the 19th and 20th century. Crazy.
Yeah, so whaling, that's the reason why it's going on. And they're scary. The last fact that I mentioned it, where they will come into an area and some of the other animals are like, nope. And other animals have developed this sense whenever they're there. I saw a video, it was on YouTube, of this walrus that climbed up into a boat. Like the boat was just there fishing, and they were trying to get the walrus out of the boat, and the walrus was like not having it at all. Like, I'm getting in this motherfucking boat. They had no idea why the walrus was trying so hard, even when they're like hitting it with sticks to get it out. And then they saw 3 killer whales go by, and they're like, oh, that's the reason why. Like, because if that walrus is staying in the water, he's gonna die. Like, and he knows it. So he's like, I'll get hit with these sticks, but I'm not staying here.
Well, have you seen that video of like, it's one of those tourist boats in the Antarctic, and there's this adorable, fluffy little like baby seal on this ice thing, and there's 3 orcas surrounding it, and they're making
the waves, right? Aren't they doing the wave thing?
They're making the waves,
and they'll just make waves, and eventually it falls off. And then that same video is the one where they punt it like 100 feet in the air.
The tourists on the boat are all like sobbing; they're all beside themselves. So that's a fun thing.
Well, could you imagine going with your family, like, say Cash is like 4 years old, and you take him on this amazing whale watching adventure, and you're hanging out, because we wanted to do that in Alaska before COVID came. We were going to go watch the whales in Alaska and hope to see like a humpback whale. And the next thing you know, you're having to explain to your child while a seal just went flying 150 feet in the air.
I would make up a lie. They're goofing. They're just goofing out there. They're all
I'm like, oh, well, they're playing whale football is what they're doing. And
I can see some hardo dad being like, don't look away. This is nature.
Look at that,
this
you
is the
bitch.
way it goes.
Look at that
I'd
pussy.
be like, yeah, we'd be on the other side of the boat eating snacks or something like that.
Yeah, like, oh, let's go over here. Let's not do that. So what happened with TJ Maxx?
Okay, so I too was watching TikTok the other day, and I see this TikTok. It's just a woman talking about Ray Dunn women, and it's got 3 million views, like 10,000 comments. I'm looking at the comments, and they're all agreeing with her and sharing their own horror stories. And I still don't quite understand. I'm like, what is a Ray Dunn woman? But she talks about how they wait outside her store in the morning. There's like big groups of them. And then as soon as the store opens, they go sprinting in, and they're knocking carts over, and they're moving all the merch around.
Throwing baby seals in the air.
They're throwing baby seals in the air. They're hiding stuff. They're accusing staff of lying about certain pieces being broken so they can steal them for themselves, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, what is Ray Dunn? Ray Dunn, what the fuck is that? Have you ever heard of it, Chaps? First of all, you had not. Have you seen? It's very simple ceramic pottery, and it'll be a butter dish. It's white ceramic butter dish, and this cutesy all caps lettering. It'll say butter on it. Or a little white coffee mug that says coffee.
Oh, yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about. I just Googled it. Yeah. And I'm sure everybody that's listening does too. If you just Google Ray Dunn, R-A-E Dunn, D-U-N-N, and you'll see it. You'll know exactly what it is.
So it's a line of like coffee mugs that say sassy things, like Halloween coming up. It would be a mug that says like, witch, please, or a birdhouse that says hope on it, or a butter dish that says butter dish, or a seasonal one, like a Halloween candy dish that says spooky, but it's always in the same font, this all caps, like cutesy font. And it's almost always on white ceramics, sometimes change it up a little bit. But it's the most basic shit ever, but people cannot get enough of it. It is reselling. Certain pieces are reselling right now. I went on eBay and looked it up. Take a guess about how much just a simple white, like 5-inch by 5-inch little birdhouse that says hope on it costs.
Oh my God. Before you told me to guess, I just clicked shopping on Google. Yeah. And I saw one that was a mug that's just like a coffee mug that says thankful on it. And it's on sale on eBay for $15,000. Yeah.
Some of these things are thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. But here's what creates the fervor. And they're sold. This woman, her name is Ray Dunn. She's a ceramic artist, and she does these basic bitch mugs and stuff. It's only sold really at TJ Maxx, Marshalls, and Home Goods. And I think they're all owned by the same whatever. Mm-hmm. And you never know with these stores, you never know what store is going to get what merch. It's different in pretty much every, it's like a random shit store, these stores. Like they have cute stuff, but they're all very random. Mm-hmm. And so that's why these women never know which store is going to have those key, super popular pieces. And so that's why they wait, and that's why they dig around. And that's why people were telling stories about like people accusing workers of sleeping with Ray Dunn collectors and doing all kinds of crazy shit. They're bumping into them. They're knocking into them. I went on this website. There's even, you know how the military is all about acronyms?
Mm-hmm.
DISO, DISO, desperately in search of. DD, dirty delete. If an item, I guess, has been taken to the store. FTO, for trade only. HTF, hard to find. Like Ray Dunn pieces. NIL, next line. They have their own language, of course. VHTF,
Much like
very
orcas.
hard to find. And then there's all these blogs telling other women how to search for them. If you're hunting,
and men,
you're right, and men. Actually, I was telling this downstairs, and one of the guys in the control room was like, well, I have a toothbrush holder that says toothbrushes on it, and it's Ray Dunn. I was like, yeah, that's it. You got it. There's blogs now telling people, they call it hunting for Ray Dunn. So this is from a blog about it. So if you're hunting, look for specific boxes in the back and ask before ripping them open, because they've had a problem with women getting into the backs of these stores and ripping open boxes of merch. It's specific codes. There's photos here that she's taken. Department number 80 PO 80 blah blah. If you see 50 on a box, it's probably mugs. If you see 32 on a box, that people have found out the codes on just cardboard boxes that might contain Ray Dunn.
Now it makes me so upset because I've been in so many of those stores and seen it, and now I didn't buy it. And what if I just wasted my life and I could have been rich off a $15,000 mug?
But so you'll see tons of it. The items that mostly you see sitting in the store are items, they don't have as much value as certain things. So there's onesies, blankets, underwear, jewelry, soap, collabs for pool floats, glasses, cases, everything. But it's only certain items, specifically vessels, that have the most value. There's Facebook groups with 20,000, 30,000 members where they go over the ways to, and they call it hunting for it. And basically, I'm sure most of the hunters are lovely, but they're running into a problem where the women are getting so ruthless. They're like basically knocking employees over to get to this shit. And when employees wheel the bins out to restock the shelves, they're pushing them out of the way and starting to go through even just the carts they're pushing out to get to this shit and to go through it and find out what it is. So anyway, it's a whole TikTok. Retail employees from TikTok, TJ Maxx, Home Goods, whatever. There's a huge thing if you do the hashtag Ray Dunn on it now, where they're all complaining about these women, and said the women will get there when the store opens in the morning and they will still be in the store when it closes that night.
What? Why?
Because at any given point, new
they could
merch,
bring some out.
Right. They could bring some out. And so they loiter all day long. They accuse employees of stealing for their own benefit. It's crazy. This thing's, I'd never heard of it before. But then I looked up the hashtag Ray Dunn, and like, women collect this. Then they build display cases in their homes, and they're seasonal. It's insane. I've never seen, some of these collections are insane. And it's just white ceramic dishes that say what the item is, like a flower dish that says flower. I don't understand it.
Now, how the fuck are you going to tie this into the military? How are you going to do it?
Oh, they have military mugs too.
Oh, okay.
That's it. That's the military tie-in. But there's a whole like military wife mug.
I was racking my brain the entire time. Like, where's the tie-in going to come from? Like,
Army,
what is the
Air
military
Force,
equivalent
Navy.
to this? I guess whenever you first have like a new piece of gear that comes out that everybody likes. Do you remember when like the Gore-Tex top and bottoms came out? And forever you had like the old school woodland camis from like the early 2000s. And then when it updated to digital and you had like the coyote desert camo fucking Gore-Tex top and bottom, everybody wanted that shit. And if you had it, everybody was like, oh my God. Running suits were like that too. Like if you didn't get it issued when they first came out, because you could wear them out in town. It was one of the ones that you could actually do. So that was a way for Marines. Like if you had to stop and get gas, typically you couldn't stop out in town to get gas because it was against like the uniform order. But now, because you could wear that, you could wear your sweatsuit or your tracksuit out in town and you could do all that stuff. Oh yeah.
The other tie-in that I have is that I also, looking for a social post for 0 Block 30, I'll type in military base down, like, see what's happening at the different military bases or whatever. I put in Fort Lewis McChord the other day, and it was like, here's a tour of military housing. And it was clearly a very high ranking officer's home, because it was this beautiful house, like this beautiful old house, you know, that officer section of everybody. And I was like, this is not that. She was playing it off like this is the typical housing that they get. And inside it was beautiful and stunning, and room by room, it was really beautifully decorated, and then turned into the dining room. and the entire wall was Ray Dunn items. And I was like, yeah, this is not what the barracks people in the barracks are getting. This
but
is
some of those old bases that are in spots like that, like the officer housing and even the high enlisted housing, it's remarkable. Like the NAS Jacksonville, I went there a few years ago and I was just driving around because it's right on the St. Johns River. And there's this old historical mansions that were built in like the early 1900s.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, you lucky fucking admirals that are living right on the water where you can go. Like they have even like little docks off the back of their property. And meanwhile, the E3 has roaches and stuff all over their shit.
Yeah. At West Point, the homes are beautiful too, which I get it. If you're probably away from your family a lot and dedicating a lot
and you're careerist,
like you're careerist. Yeah.
Right. And you're in charge of a lot of stuff. You should live in a nice area, I guess.
But still, anyways, that's the rabbit hole I've been down on. I've been working on a blog on it for far too long. And I'm like, I just have to run my mouth about it. I'd never heard of it before.
So orcas and mugs, that was round number one.
Hot round.
Round number two, let's move on over to the old UK. I think we're going to do a little UK goofing here. This one has to deal with a Marine who went all the way across the old Atlantic trying to get his stuff going on. This story, whenever I hear stuff like this, it's like, why would you do this? Why would you want to put yourself through this level of pain? Because the story comes to us from BBC and it says a former Royal Marine has successfully completed a row across the Atlantic Ocean. Dave Dinger Bell was from Cornwall, and on Sunday he was done after spending 119 days alone at sea. His team believes he is one of the first people to successfully row unsupported from New York to continental Europe. Along the way, he was stung by jellyfish hit by huge storms and revealed that he has a fear of open water. On arrival, he said, I'm never doing anything dangerous ever again. Like whenever he got there. I mean, for this type of thing to come into your brain and to think, I want to row all the way across the Atlantic Ocean by myself, because sometimes you do see stories of like swimmers across the English Channel, and they'll have like a canoe or a dinghy or a little boat that's on both sides of the person, making sure that they're safe and not going to drown. This guy went completely alone across the Atlantic. Like, how do you not get lost? Like, if you are out there in the middle of the ocean and thinking, because it's not like you're walking in Manhattan and you're going and you're like, oh, I need to go find the nearest McDonald's. I went too far. I went past 7th Street. I got to go back. It would take a long time for your GPS to update to give you where you're going and for you to be able to identify where you're at on this journey. I don't think this is something, given all the materials, given all the time, I don't think this is something that I could do.
Yeah, I don't think that I could do it either. I don't think most people could do it. In the photo, he's holding up his hands, which are completely blistered over.
I thought he, when I first saw the pictures of his hands, I thought he was wearing gloves.
And he talks about times that he had to row for 40 hours straight because of storms, and all sorts of stuff like that. And I was looking for the story that said why he did it, because I'm sure there was a reason that he did that. Obviously, you don't just say, oh, I'm gonna whatever. But I do think like there is something about, especially, I'm not going to assume with him because I couldn't figure out why he was doing it, but a lot of people who take on stuff like this, they have a reason that, I don't know. It's like when I was going through a tough time, I got really, really, really into hiking. And the harder the hike was, the more accomplished and better I felt when I had done it. And I walked away with this great sense of peace afterwards that like, well, if you could do that, then you can take on the next thing. You know, if you can do this, I don't know. I can't really explain it, but I got a great sense of like peace and accomplishment that I didn't get from everyday life when I would do something difficult like that. So I don't know if that was what he was going for.
No, he said that he just wanted to do something really difficult, and he did raise money for 2 different charities along the way. Okay. But that he said in an interview that wasn't his intention. Like it just happened that way. He self-funded the entire thing and just wanted to do something incredibly difficult, which makes it even more bizarre. Like usually even if you have that desire, I think it's kind of like serving in the Marine Corps. We're like, well, I got to say something. Like it's because of my love for America. It's not just because I wanted a job and I wanted to get my college paid for. It has to be something greater than I just wanted a career to have, which is, I think is the case for a lot of people. But going across the Atlantic Ocean, I mean, how scary would that be? If you're in the middle of the ocean, a storm where you 40 hours, rowing for 40 hours is so long. So long.
Also, I know you plan your route out with a current that is going in your favor. But imagine like a windy day where you get pushed backwards. It has to be so
That's probably why I had to do
demoralizing.
it for 40 hours.
Yeah, true. Yeah, caught in a big storm off the coast. So that's really
And
crazy.
swells, like the swells. I mean, the swells knock over big ass boats. You see that constantly, like consistently, where big fishing boats will get tossed aside. What if there's a huge storm that comes through? How do you know that a huge storm's coming through?
Well, actually, so I'm looking at his Instagram and you see it's really interesting. It's NY to UK solo row. So New York to UK solo row. And it shows some days his patterns is like just a zigzag weeble wobble. Like you can tell he didn't go very far. He kind of looped around and whatever on certain days. So yeah, that's really cool though. And I get like, even too, maybe that's what it was with the hikes, like just doing something difficult for the sake of doing it. I don't know. It gives you this feeling that you don't get, even if you're not going through a difficult time. I don't know. I get the appeal of it, but I definitely.
And it's not big. Like I'm looking at the picture of the boat and it's getting tossed by the waves big time. It's probably 20 feet long. 20 feet long in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean is nothing. Even if he had like a rescue beacon, they're not finding you. Like if you're in that and you're in the middle of the Atlantic, they're not finding you. There's just no shot. No way.
And here's a quote from him about halfway through during hurricane season. On the one hand, I have no desire to quit and I'm determined to get to the other side. On the other hand, I have no desire to die for the sake of my ego. So yeah, so that was about halfway through. That was earlier in September. So, but he made it. That's pretty fucking cool. You check that out. You have to give that a look.
Yeah,
Crazy.
it is. So because of that, I went and found the greatest accomplishments, because I would think that going from New York to Europe is one of the bigger accomplishments in that scale that you could possibly have. Like where you're going just on a little canoe that you're getting across. That is one of them that I think that's more impressive than like summiting Mount Everest or something like that. Do you agree?
You know what's crazy to me too? I think everything's like difficult in its own classic Kate answer. Everything's like super difficult in its own different way. But I was thinking about the Revolutionary War the other day, because of course I was.
As you do.
And because as one does. And I was thinking about the logistics of it from the UK's perspective. They fought a whole ass war with us on our turf before motorboats. They came all the way over here. Tens of thousands they had to get the logistics for. I would like if there's a historian out there who could tell me more about the logistics of the Revolutionary War. How the fuck did they?
And when did they get better at it?
And because they put up a good fight. So
like in the 200 years that from when Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue to whenever you first or 300 years when you started fighting the Revolutionary War, how did they get so much better? Because whenever they were doing these voyages from Spain to the New World, it would take them months and they would get turned around and circled around. Next thing you know, they have the efficiency where they can just do it consistently and constantly with a huge navy.
But even then, there still had to be huge losses. I would assume like 1 out of every 20 boats or something had to, like, still crossing the Atlantic in a wooden fucking ship for the most part, right? Somebody get a historian on the horn. I have no idea how they did that. But.
No, I have no idea how they did that. And I wanted to ask you, because of all these stories of things that are insane and like big time accomplishments, I want to go through some of the biggest accomplishments in human history and see if now, knowing it now, if you went back in history, could you replicate it? Like, could you, if nobody had ever heard of it, if you almost did like, what was that? The Black Knight with the dude who played Martin. You know what I'm talking about? Where he goes like back into the medieval times and he's trying to explain stuff. If you had to do that, I want to go through some of the biggest accomplishments in human history and see if you feel like you could rewrite it where it was nearly as good. Knowing what you know now, could you go back to 1770, like 1770 time frame, and write the Declaration of Independence, something similar to the Declaration of Independence, knowing what's in it?
No.
Like if they're like, all right, Kate, you are going to be responsible for the Declaration of Independence, could you do it?
It would be like Tuesday. I'd be like, hey, everybody, let's be free, man.
I think I would get kind of close, but it would not be accurate. Like, I think I could get, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights. Among those are life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. I think I thought
you were about to pretend to read the entire Declaration of
No,
Independence off the top
I
of your
think I could do that part of it. But then the rest of the pages of it, no shot. Like, I think I could get the main, same thing with the Gettysburg Address. I think I could get the 7 years ago part correct. And then everything
all
else.
Who shall see these presents greetings?
Yeah,
what?
Not that one. Another one was the French Declaration of Rights and the Man of Citizens from 1793. We can't do that. I've never even heard of that. That's supposed to be the second best like political document of all time. Couldn't do that. The same thing with the Declaration of Human Rights from the United Nations. Democracy, I could not do that. Now, art, you are an artist. So let's say you do like to paint, you did Katie paints. Could you recreate Mona Lisa?
No, I suck.
Okay.
No, I couldn't do any of that stuff.
What about Michelangelo's David?
No, but you know what? Well, they didn't really have paper back then. I was like, I bet I could blow their minds with like paper planes and basic shit like that. The cartwheels, I bet they didn't
I
do
think they
round
did have
offs.
paper, Kate.
Not good foldable stuff like we got. Not
All right.
inkjet.
The complete works of William Shakespeare.
Nope. The answer to all these would be no, but go ahead.
I think there's some of them that you could do. I think you could do the Declaration of Independence. I think that's one, like, it might not be exactly as the way that Jefferson penned it, but I think that you could get pretty close.
No.
Madison too.
No. I couldn't tell you a single thing about it. And I have been to the Declaration Museum in Philadelphia several times. My dad would be very disappointed to hear me say, I've been to the Revolutionary War Museum. I've been to all these museums. Couldn't tell you.
These are ones that we know that we could not do. We could not reinvent a steam engine train. No shot.
I couldn't do any of this, chaps. I don't understand how a plane works.
First flight was the other one. The development of vaccines and being the first man on the moon. I still don't know how we got to the moon. I still don't know.
I don't believe it.
Like, how do you
see the shadows in the background?
Trajectory of getting to the moon from the Earth, and then you're going to land safely? And how have we not done anything even remotely close to that in 50 years? Like, with as much, there is no technology. A computer that read a floppy disk was as big as a living room. And now we have a much more powerful than anything that was on Earth at the time in our pocket. And we haven't done nearly anything as advanced.
You hear that, Space Force? Your diagonal button head ass? Get to it.
All right, let's move on to round number 3. Round number 3, the CIA was getting ready to take out Julian Assange. Do you have this? Do you have the sheet open, Kate?
I do. Yes, I do.
Let's go through that.
So brought to you by Yahoo News, exclamation point. In 2017, as Julian Assange began his 5th year holdup in Ecuador's embassy in London, the CIA plotted to kidnap the Wikileaks founder, spurring heated debate among Trump admin officials over the legality and practicality of such an operation. Some senior officials inside the CIA and the Trump admin even discussed killing Assange, going so far as to request sketches or options for how to assassinate him. Discussions over kidnapping or killing Assange occurred at the highest levels of the Trump administration, according to a former senior counterintelligence official. There seemed to be no boundaries. The conversations were part of an unprecedented CIA campaign directed against WikiLeaks and its founder. The agency's multi-pronged plans also include extensive spying on WikiLeaks associates, sowing discord among the group's members, and stealing their electronic devices. So kind of going a little Russia on them. While Assange had been on the radar of U.S. intelligence agencies for years, these plans for an all-out war against him were sparked by WikiLeaks' ongoing publication of extraordinarily sensitive CIA hacking tools known as Vault 7, which the agent Vault 7, anything with Vault in it, I believe, I'm like, wow, which the agency ultimately concluded represented the largest data loss in CIA history. President Trump's newly installed CIA director, Mike Pompeo, was seeking revenge on Assange and WikiLeaks, who had sought refuge in the Ecuadorian embassy since 2012 to avoid extradition to Sweden on rape allegations he denied. Pompeo and other top agency leaders were completely detached from reality because they were so embarrassed about Vault 7, said a former national security official. They were seeing blood, not just red. They were seeing platelets and everything.
And I could see that. Like, if you're the CIA doesn't like to be embarrassed. Like, they're like the cockiness of CIA officials, and like, we can do essentially whatever we want. When the tables are turned, that is not something that they enjoy at all.
Yeah. The CIA didn't get asked to the 7th grade dance in middle school, but then grew up and was like, fuck everybody.
Exactly
I am
right,
somebody.
Kate.
Anyway, the CIA's fury at WikiLeaks led Pompeo to publicly describe the group in 2017 as a non-state hostile intelligence service. More than just a provocative talking point, the designation opened the door for agency operatives to take far more aggressive actions, treating the organization as it does adversary spy services. Within months, U.S. spies were monitoring the communications and movements of numerous WikiLeaks personnel, including audio and visual surveillance of Assange himself, according to former officials. This Yahoo News investigation, based on conversations with more than 30 former U.S. officials, 8 of whom described details of the CIA's proposals to abduct Assange, reveals for the first time one of the most contentious intelligence debates of the Trump presidency and exposes new details about the U.S. government's war on WikiLeaks. It was a campaign spearheaded by Pompeo that bent important legal structures, potentially jeopardized the Justice Department's work prosecuting Assange, and risked a damaging episode in the UK, the US's closest ally. The CIA has declined to comment. Pompeo did not respond to requests for comment. So what are you thinking about all this?
To me, it seems legitimate. Like, if you have going on the record and saying we had 30 people talk about it and 8 had like big time details, it gives it a lot of credence, especially because it comes from an organization that's not normally involved in this type of stuff. But I know what it's going to be. Like, if you have Twitter and all that, it's going to be, oh, well, what are your sources? Who are your sources on this? You're never going to get it. So you could just say we have 8 people that are saying this type of thing. But it gives it a little bit more credence when you say we had all of these officials that were testifying to the same thing.
Yeah. And Pompeo, I mean, he didn't mince words. He says WikiLeaks walks like a hostile intelligence service, talks like a hostile intelligence service, and has encouraged its followers to find jobs at the CIA in order to obtain intelligence. It's time to call out WikiLeaks for what it really is, a non-state hostile intelligence service, often abetted by state actors like Russia.
I mean, that's essentially putting them in the terrorist designation group. Like, that's essentially why they do that. Like, they put them in there because once the state officially declares somebody to be like a terrorism group or something like that, their ability to target them through assassination opens up all kinds of legal avenues to do that kind of stuff. This kind of shit is crazy, though, because a lawyer for Assange, who's an American citizen, said that you're going around like habeas corpus and like a right to a fair trial and having extrajudicial killings. Buddy, that's what we do all the time. Like, we do that shit constantly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's no thing. Ain't no thing. What? Don't laugh at me. WikiLeaks basically has always been a thorn in the U.S.'s side, kind of always just leaking stuff about the war and stuff about, right? Like, I'll be honest, I don't know a ton about it. I think it's,
well, we always used to joke about, we don't do it nearly as much. There's basically 2 sides to that story, 2 schools of thought, essentially. And some will say that having organizations like WikiLeaks is incredibly invaluable because it keeps the government in check. And they basically view it as an extension of the press, like that Assange would say that he's a member of the press and he's publishing unredacted forms of intelligence so that people can see. People who are really into military intelligence and value that type of thing think that it's treasonous if you are an American doing that, like Chelsea Manning did and Edward Snowden did, where you're releasing information that could cause operators on the ground or intelligence to suffer. You'll have 2 sides really of the military community. One of them says that things like what Snowden and what Assange did are invaluable, like that it causes the government to have to be held to account. One of the main was whenever they released all kinds of drones and the videos of drones attacking folks that didn't deserve it, or it was a wrongful killing. Like WikiLeaks, eventually, I would imagine if CIA and the Washington Post didn't uncover what happened in that last drone strike that happened in Afghanistan, that's something that WikiLeaks would have targeted and tried to get that information and put it out there in order to make the US look bad. That's what intelligence says. But is it really the Americans looking bad because of the information was released, or was it the action that you took that was actually bad, and having it come to light will create some type of good government change, essentially?
Okay. Yeah, I should probably know more about it. And as you're explaining it, I'm like, oh yeah, obviously Chelsea Manning, and that was huge. The
and not just that, you had that one that went on. Somebody was just released recently. I think her name was like fucking Christmas. It was some weird name.
Winner, right?
Winner.
Reality winner.
Yeah. Like she got released and she was doing the same type of thing.
The
that
Clinton
Chelsea
emails, where's the gefilte fish?
You have all that kind of stuff. And that's really the basis for like internet conspiracy. I think WikiLeaks is one that started essentially because you tried to piece everything together, but you're missing large portions of the intelligence whenever that happens. So I think that's probably where these Q type conspiracies started, because I think conspiracy theories usually start from an element of truth and then they explode way beyond that. Like where you can have like a little nugget of truth from some of these conspiracy theories, but then what you get to at the end of them, you end up with fucking a pedophilic ring of people inside a Pizza Hut that are trying to sell children as sex slaves. Like that's not what happened, but that's the natural progression, I guess, of your crazy investigations.
Escalates quickly.
Yeah, so I don't know what they're going to end up doing. Pompeo, I think, will probably deny this, but I don't doubt this one. This is one that I think is true, especially if it had to deal with the CIA being embarrassed and they wanted to take him out. I think that, I don't know if it was ever on the cusp of happen, but I do think that these are conversations that took place.
Can I say how it got introduced? They're all at the table discussing the leak, and they're like, God damn it, Vault 7, blah, blah, blah. Be a shame if somebody killed that guy, right?
Well, let's talk about that. Let's spitball. Let's do a little spitball. If we were going to do it, how would we do it? It's almost like Pompeo was trying to write like O.J. Simpson's book, If I Did It.
Right. Yeah. Just wouldn't it be a shame? Right, guys?
Just putting that out there. No big deal. No big deal at all. It's totally fine. We're actually not going to do it. But what we are going to do, Kate, is we are going to get into a little bit of Trifecta Nutrition. You actually got excited about it because sometimes whenever Trifecta Nutrition is on with the podcast, they'll send us big boxes of stuff of their food so we can try it out.
Mama eats healthy again.
They have all kinds of different stuff if you want to save time, and they're giving you 40% off with the promo code 0. Eating healthy does not have to suck with Trifecta Nutrition. All their meal plans are created by chefs and dietitians to help people get in the best shape of their lives. Trifecta's meals are backed by nutrition science and they taste great. They are convenient. You can put them in an air fryer, the microwave, the oven, any type of way that you cook your food, you can do it quickly, and it tastes great, and you don't have to worry about cooking that week, which is nice. Go to trifectanutrition.com with the promo code 0. Again, you're going to get 40% off, which is crazy. There's no wasted cooking time or cleaning. Just eat, get healthy, and then toss all that shit away so you don't even have to do the dishes. Pretty incredible deal. Trifecta Nutrition with the promo code 0 for 40% off. Let's move on to round number 4, which today is going to be dealing with the guy who shot President Reagan. This story is a wild one too. One, because I would think in American culture, the worst thing that you could do is try to assassinate the president. No matter who that president is, what time period and that you're talking about, I would think that most Americans would feel, if you did a poll and said, how long should you go to prison for if you shot the president of the United States while he's president of the United States? I would imagine almost everybody says life, right?
I would assume it's automatic life. Yeah, you would have to, even if they were insane, just as a deterrent to others who might try it, you would think it would have to be life for the sake of national security.
And I'm a big mental health guy. Like, I believe in mental health and how you're not going to be doing the same type of thing that you did if you're in a healthy state of mind. But shooting the president is just so different. This one comes from NPR. It says a federal judge has approved an unconditional release next year for John Hinckley Jr., who wounded President Ronald Reagan and 3 others outside of a Washington, D.C. hotel in a failed assassination attempt in 1981. And this is what me and Feidelberg talked about this in the last Barstool Confessions. It would suck to be in this role because it was like you were with President Reagan whenever he got shot, even though you got shot too. You're never going to get mentioned. It was President Reagan that got shot and 3 others. Yeah. It's the same thing like John was talking about. He took a helicopter ride with Dave Portnoy one day, and him and somebody and Hank were on the flight, and they were like, well, if this goes down, it will be Dave Portnoy and 2 others were killed in a helicopter
Right,
crash,
exactly.
and that's what their lives would essentially be like. But Hinckley, who is now 66, has been living outside of a mental health facility for the past several years, the result of graduating and a lightening of his supervision. His lawyer said the monumentous event of Hinckley's full release in June is both appropriate and required by law. There is no evidence of danger, said Levine, who is his attorney. And the prosecutors and Justice Department agreed to a settlement, but wanted Hinckley to monitor for the next 9 months because the 2 biggest changes in his life. He was going to be living on his own for the first time in 40 years. And because his primary doctor is preparing for retirement and disbanding Hinckley's therapy group, and the Justice Department said it would file the demotion. So they would still want some. I can unconditional release, like where you don't even have to go check in. Like, even if you are if you're clinically insane and that's the way that you get off, you would think that the court would want to monitor that to make sure that you're getting your mental health treatment, that you're going in, that you're still doing well. Because I would imagine that's something that could stop, right? Like,
I imagine that's always going to be a little bit of a thing if you shot the president. I don't know. I don't know enough about it, but and doesn't he make his own? We talked about him on this podcast a few months ago. He makes his own music now.
Yeah, he makes his own music, and
he's got music videos on YouTube, and
he's just goofing. He's just doing stuff. And not only that, but he was also ordered to stay away from Jodie Foster, who he also tried to assassinate. He was going to have an assassination attempt against her and the family members of the Reagans is who want to. But he does have a YouTube channel where he sings and plays the guitar.
I'm sure that's a big relief to Jodie Foster in the squad. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't know. I would assume that's a lifer thing. Again, I don't know. It's just wild when you look at what, again, I don't know enough about the law. He pled insanity and they went with that. So that aside, I feel like the punishment dished out for different crimes are so wildly different and inappropriate in some cases, the way they differ for like there's somebody who sold $5 worth of weed probably still in prison down south somewhere.
Yeah, like for a third strike law or something like that, where you have like a little bit of weed and you're going to jail. Like I've seen people here in Texas where you get your 4th DUI, you go to jail for life. You can go to jail for life if on your 4th DUI.
Yeah. Crazy.
But they do say that he had 30 years of checkups consecutively where he had no relapses, no remissions, and he's been in full and completely stable for over 30 years. Like, and having it. So if you are in that spot and something happened to you and you get treatment, like it's hard for somebody like us that says we do value mental health care and that you aren't yourself, you're doing things that you aren't yourself. And I know that from personal experience. It's like, you shot the president, man. You did shoot the president. That's still pretty bad.
You did shoot the president. He hit him in the left lung with a 22 caliber bullet, just missing his heart. In an impressive feat for a 70-year-old man with a collapsed lung, he walked into George Washington University Hospital under his own power.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Badass move. I think that's the reason why people really like Reagan. It wasn't trickle down economics or anything like that. It's the image of the president getting shot and walking in under his own power. People like that shit.
Yeah, he joked to the surgeons, "Please tell me you're Republicans," right before he went under the knife. So
classic goofball.
Goofball, total goofing. And the next day, he resumed some of his executive duties and signed a piece of legislation from the hospital bed. So
yeah, that was one of the biggest. They thought it was going to be a constitutional crisis because they didn't really have everything figured out of who was going to be in ultimate control. Was it going to be HW or is it going to be Reagan? Whenever he was under like under anesthesia, they had that type of concern. And then that same type of thing happened when W had an operation where they weren't sure if it was like an official presidency, like if you had to have a transfer of power.
Right.
Because it is, I mean, if you're under full anesthesia and you're getting president, like you'd think somebody's got to be in charge.
It's like when the whole country throws a party real quick because the mom's away. You're like, oh, everybody wild now. Also the Jodie Foster tie-in and the part of the reason for his like cause of insanity or whatever it was, he was obsessed with the movie Taxi Driver with Robert De Niro. Did you ever see that? So he apparently watched the movie more than a dozen times, became obsessed with Jodie Foster, and attempted to reenact events of the film in his own life. Thus, the movie, they argued, not Hinckley, was the actual planning force behind the events that occurred that day. I mean, lawyers, big brain lawyers there doing that. So pretty interesting. Who knew?
All right, let's move into save rounds and alibis. What do you got?
Oh, nothing crazy. Didn't do much this weekend. I still am too chicken to take the baby places a lot of times. Like I need to go grocery shopping, but I don't know where to put him. I don't want him chewing.
Yeah, I saw that issue that you had with the porta potty.
Oh yeah, I went to there's this bird sanctuary right near where we live, and it's so easy to take him there. And there's a lot of shade, and like there's so many things you have to consider when you're taking a baby around. So it's like my go-to morning spot on the weekends now, where I'll take him for walks. And the problem is there's only one porta potty because of COVID. The buildings are closed, which this doesn't make any sense to me because now I'm just going to pee in a parking lot somewhere, which is even dirtier. But anyway, there's just one small porta potty, and I'm sorry, I'm not taking my son into a small ass porta potty and finagling. God forbid you drop. I mean, I can't even. The brain doesn't go. But so, and then I was like, there's all these old couples walking around. Like, do I park the stroller out in front of the porta potty and ask an older couple to stand there for a second? But can I ask a stranger to watch my baby? What if I come out and he's gone? And then what do I just leave the door cracked open and look? I ended up being like, fuck it, we have to go home. So I can go to the bathroom because I didn't know.
So you didn't want to just put him on your lap?
In the porta potty, it was gross. It was fucking gross.
Oh yeah, because you don't want to sit down all the way.
No, so you don't want to sit down. So whatever.
When McCartney was little, I used to hold them like a little accordion over the porta potty when they had to go, when they were figuring out how to do their business out, like potty training. Because when you're in the midst of potty training, I need to go to the bathroom. No, you're going to have to wait is not an option. No. Like when they are telling you I'm going, it's like, yes, you're going to go right now. So I would hold McCartney over the opening of a porta potty at like parks and be like, just go. I'm like, are you sure, Dad? I'm like, yep, just go. And Annalise would be standing off to the side like, this is unbelievable. I'm like, this is legitimately the most Marine thing that I could do because I'm improvising, adapting, and overcome a terrible situation and just simply dumping.
Oh, when we were little kids on the crabbing boats down the Jersey Shore, our parents would just put our little butts over the edge of the boat and be like,
when I had turd grappling my boat, I got a little bucket from Home Depot and got one of those noodles from the dollar store, like the pool noodles, and cut it and then made it go around it so you could sit on that little thing. That's where they would go to the bathroom.
Also, I finally went to one of my big things before the baby. I liked going to different breweries. I would even travel pretty far to do this. And I just would do 1 or 2 tastings of the flights. And you get the vibe for that town. People who work at breweries are usually really friendly. Like it just was kind of I would make it a whole day. And I finally went to a brewery. I only lasted 1 beer, but it was right near the apartment and they were so nice. I was nervous to come with the baby, and it turned out it was their Oktoberfest. So it was super loud. I was like, and they could see that I was kind of like about to leave. And they're like, wait, we have a whole upstairs that nobody is there. Why don't you guys go upstairs? We had this whole upstairs of the brewery to ourselves. So the bathroom. Nice. Yeah, a little. So it was nice to kind of have a beer and feel like slightly normal again. So there's that.
Yeah, and you're due 6 months. You're due. You're ready to go out and be full blown Katie again. I had a nice little weekend too. We turned on the hot tub for the first time. Wifey and I went out there. My beloved UTSA Roadrunners are still undefeated at 4-0, which I'm very happy about. I started at UTSA when the first year that we had a football team. So seeing them go now and beating some like Illinois is a bigger program, and then they just beat Memphis. So not just beating up on like small directional schools from Southwest Louisiana State or something like that is nice to see. That's been fun, and just hanging out in the hot tub and chilling and doing that type of thing. Not doing much on the weekend, getting ready to be full back into building stuff because it's cool. Like I'm actually in hoodie weather, so I can go out to my shop and build some stuff. I'm ready for that. And lit a fire, had a first big fire going on. So that's been nice too.
Love a good fire. I got in a big s'mores kick recently. So I highly recommend.
But that's it. I guess Cons will be back here on Friday. We'll see you then. It's on the retreat.